it was not like uncommon to walk into a gay bar and be like, "Hey, where's such and such?" And they're, like someone who worked there or whatever. They'll be like, "Oh, they died, AIDS."
Oh, wow.
So it's not
Okay.
like it wasn't happening still. I didn't know anybody who was living, as they say, with HIV healthily. Everyone I knew had dropped dead.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories that they created there, and the people that they used to know. The 1st of December, the day that this episode is published, is World AIDS Day, an international day dedicated to raising awareness of the AIDS pandemic. To mark this day, on this week's show, I am joined by De'Vannon Hubert, podcaster and author of Sex, Drugs and Jesus, a memoir about his struggles with his positive diagnosis, drug addiction, homelessness, and rejection from his church for his sexuality. And the venue that we're discussing is F Bar in Houston, Texas, a place that holds bittersweet memories for De'Vannon. It was here that he celebrated, danced, and made friends and chosen family. But it was also here that he received the phone call telling him that he had contracted HIV. Before we get started, the question that I am asking this week is around religion. During our conversation, we talk about our experiences with organized religion and, well, you know how cynical I am, don't you? So I'm kind of a bit iffy on it and a bit like around the edges, but I'm starting as I get older to see that there is some value within it. And I'd really like to hear your thoughts and see what your experiences have been. If you are listening on Spotify, you can answer this question within the app. But if you're not on Spotify, reach out to me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Lost Spaces Pod, or email me via my website, lostspacespodcast.com. Right, let's get going. So first of all, what does the F in F bar stand for?
I would hope that it would stand for fuck,
Uh-huh.
or something great like that. Shit, I never asked that question once F bar opened. We were just like, okay, that's the cute new place in town, bitch. Let's go.
Oh, okay. So then if it did stand for fuck, let's just say, just for a moment, did you then, embrace that concept?
In so many ways, my dear, we had much fuckery at F Bar, in the form of lots of cocaine use in the bathroom. They had perfect stalls for it because they had the floor to ceiling doors. This is a very posh bar. A
Wow.
little bit, I don't know if I would say Tasmanian, but you had like the black chandeliers,
What
and every,
Tasmanian?
I don't know. I was thinking kind of like, I don't know. I was thinking kind of like Dracula. I was thinking kind of like
Oh,
Dracula, dark and goth.
Transylvanian.
Yeah,
Transylvanian.
Transylvania. I haven't had my vodka this morning yet, so. But it was very like posh and chic like that. Very dark, velvety red, doors and stuff like that. Very exotic. So it's a great place to do a lot of cocaine, and so we would gather. We'd gather. I was a drug dealer, of course, so I always had everything on me.
So how many people could you fit in a stall?
I would go for 3 comfortably, 4 if you
Okay,
really
all right.
liked everyone.
Because you also have to bend over, don't you? I mean, wait, cocaine's up your nose, right?
Depends on what type of night you're trying to have.
Oh, do you mean up your butt? Am I
You
getting...
could you could do a booty bump. You could totally do a booty bump.
Ah, wow.
Yeah. Booty bumping is it can be fun, but it's also super risky because the asshole walls and everything are very thin, and things transfer into your bloodstream very quickly in there, so you can overdose very easily by stuffing things up your asshole.
Ah. I might not want to ask any more questions about this. I might maybe we should move on. I'm getting there. Yeah, this is making me feel a bit. Yeah. So if it was of a discreet place to take drugs in, that means it must have also been a discreet place to have sex in.
It could be a very discreet place to have sex in, and I had my fair share of a bathroom romps.
Rendezvous.
I just consider myself to be highly social. I'm doing what they taught me to do in Sunday
Very
school
giving. Yeah.
and share. I just gotta share what the Lord has given me.
Did you ever get caught?
The only shade that was thrown was by the janitor. And I don't say that by looking down on him because he was a janitor, because I've been a janitor before. But, he would like pound on the door and hassle us and everything like that, not want us to congregate. And I'm all like, okay, us coming in here, it's spending money, keeps the doors open so that your bitch ass can have a job. Now, if you want some of this cocaine, motherfucker, just say so. You could have plenty. Nobody's being stingy. There's no need to be disgruntled about it. you know?
But there must have been some kind of horrible bodily fluids that he had to clean up. So I can kind of understand why he would be grumpy.
Oh, well, we wouldn't waste a drop of cum, honey.
I'm not talking about cum. I'm talking about other accidents. I'm not saying that you shat on the floor, but I'm sure that some people shat on the floor.
I mean, probably, but that's a part of the job. When I was a janitor, and I was a janitor at a Veterans Affairs medical facility, I had to clean up all sorts of shit and piss and blood and everything that comes along with the territory. But all the more reason for him to come in there and get a few motherfucking bumps of cocaine.
So he can just power through. Yeah.
Right. None of that would bother him anymore. And my shit was good. It had like the whole half of like your face numb and shit like that. I had that good.
So it's probably at this point we should say we're not condoning drug taking. Is that fair to say?
I don't condone. I don't condemn. Everyone needs to find their own truth.
Okay. So F-bar, you got fucked up. You got literally fucked. Why was it that you wanted to talk about that place?
F-bar is important to me because that is the place where I retrieved the voicemail where I found out that I was HIV positive. And so, that's something that's probably going to forever be ingrained in my head.
Mm-hmm. So where were you then when you listened to this voicemail?
I was there with my homegirl, and we were kikiing because it was New Year's Eve, I believe the year 2011.
Mm-hmm.
She had on her beautiful horizontal black and silver sequin dress that fit ever so snugly, and in her heels as she does. She's also my attorney, and her Halle Berry, Beyonce bangs and everything. Very beautiful, delicious African American woman, and so we were twirling on the dance floor as we do.
Okay, so what were you wearing? If we're finding out what she's wearing, what are you wearing?
Oh, I had on my cowboy boots, probably some 7 jeans or True Religion jeans, button down, pinstripe, black vest. Probably went with my violet metallic tie that particular night. That sort of thing.
Okay, so we've got the image.
Mm-hmm. And so this doctor had been calling me all day. It was strange because this was like a Saturday, I think, and his office was only open on Monday through Thursday. This was the doctor who was supposed to be treating me for hepatitis B, and I really wasn't letting him because he was being really shady, and I really wasn't trusting him.
Mm-hmm.
So he waited until the last minute on New Year's Eve to blow up my phone. He must have called me 5, 6, 7 times, and then he finally left a voicemail. And I had a feeling it was something bad, and I was like, should I wait and just party, and deal with this shit tomorrow? And I was like, let me be bold, since I got the voicemail, today on New Year's Eve. Let me check this shit before the clock strikes 12. So I didn't tell my friends where I was going. I was just like, I'll be back. And so then I just kind of walked out to the street because the music was so loud. I couldn't have possibly heard anything in the club at all. And so I just wanted to retrieve the voicemail. And on the voicemail, he was saying he wasn't empathetic at all. It's not empathetic to leave a voicemail with a positive HIV diagnosis, period.
He told you. Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Let alone on New Year's Eve. He could have like waited till the first or the second. Let a bitch enjoy her motherfucking, night. Um, so he's all like, "Yeah, you're HIV positive. Don't be out there spreading it to anybody else. Like call the office and stuff like that." This dude's like a real dick, total fucking asshole. And so that's how I found out. Standing on the side of the club at about 11:30 at night via a voicemail. And so I had a very, very bad reaction to that after the fact. But that night, I dried my eyes. I cried a whole lot, but I had to clean my mascara up, which I was wearing, and I looked real cute. And I just went back in the club and I danced the hardest dance that I think I had ever danced, because in my head, I was thinking that I would be dead in about 8 months. Everybody I ever knew who had HIV had died, and at this time in Montrose and Houston, Texas, people were still dying of AIDS. It was not like
Ah.
it was not like uncommon to walk into a gay bar and be like, "Hey, where's such and such?" And they're like someone who worked there or whatever. They'll be like, "Oh, they died, AIDS," you know.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's not like it wasn't happening still. I didn't know anybody who was living, as they say, with HIV healthily. Everyone I
Hmm.
knew had dropped dead. And so
Shit.
I had
So it had a much bigger impact than it would otherwise. So you listened to the message, you went back in and you danced. Were your friends like, "Oh, hey, what was the message? What were you doing outside?" Or did you talk about it with them? Did you bring it up? Did you just kind of like pretend it hadn't happened?
I pretended it hadn't happened. I didn't even tell them I went outside. I'm very sneaky, and if I don't want someone to know what I'm doing, they're not going to know what I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
Ergo, I was able to be a drug dealer, and stuff like that. And so I could not articulate what happened. I texted my attorney, my friend, and let her know where I worked. Before I inevitably left that job because I was too depressed to stay on it. I let him listen to the voicemail, and other than that, that was it. I could not verbally say I am HIV positive. I was hit with a slew of emotions I wasn't expecting. I felt shamed. I felt like a pariah. I felt filthy. I felt dirty. I felt contagious. I felt so filthy I couldn't go to clubs anymore. I just felt like everyone knew, and somehow I was just like this walking petri dish of disease.
Hmm.
Just all this unrational shit rolling through my head, but I accepted it as reality. And I didn't want to say it because I guess I felt like that would make it more real. I was too prideful to ask for help, and because I'd never had a problem that didn't work itself out before, that somehow it got better, but this wasn't getting better every day. This shit was still here, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to ask for help. I was the one helping other people, so
Yeah.
I needed to have a come to Jesus moment and learn how to be humble. So I needed to be broken on this level. I really needed it, looking back on it. But no, I couldn't tell anybody anything for months. I was homeless on the streets before
Ah, wow.
before I could even much. Yeah.
You mentioned that you're sneaky and secretive, or at least that you were. And I'm kind of the same way. Like I'm quite a secretive person and don't really talk much about things that are going on for me. And I always just kind of thought that that was because of my upbringing, because of the family that I grew up in and things like that. But the more I talk to queer people, the more I realize that this is a kind of a common trait. And I wondered if you feel that your queerness has informed that part of your personality, or if you think it's from somewhere else.
My family informed it, not my queerness. So
Ah, okay.
growing up in the South, in South Louisiana, okay, people are very traditional. It's very like, we are the adults, you are the children. So you do not have
Hmm.
a voice. You're not allowed
Hmm.
to be angry at adults. No one cares what you think. We will handle everything, and we're not going to walk through our problems in front of you. So, and then if problems do happen with adults, then they want you to cover it up and to be quiet. So, like when my dad
Yeah.
had his affair when I was in the eighth grade, and it was a whole shit show at home. The only thing that my mom was like is, "Look, don't tell anybody." You know, that not
Ah.
how did this affect you? What
Yeah.
can we do? Just don't tell anyone. Whatever happens, Lord, don't let anybody know that this man then went fuck some other bitch out there.
Hmm.
So secrecy is what I took from that experience. So that when problems happen, we're supposed to internalize it, deal with it ourselves, not get help, and act like we got our shit together when really we don't.
Hmm.
And so I learned that bullshit from my family.
And have you learned to let go of that bullshit over the years, or is that still something that's quite common for you?
Oh, that bullshit is so gone, burned up. The ashes have been
Oh,
spread and everything like that.
so
And
how did you overcome it?
the struggle to rehabilitate my life after I lost everything. So,
Hmm.
I went from like a job that was paying 30 to 70 an hour to homeless on the street. So I had to work up from being a janitor to a food delivery driver to waiting tables to going back to school to be a massage therapist, and all of that.
Hmm.
Now we're talking about damn near 10 years of struggling to come back up from living with my parents at the age of 30. So all the pride and the ego and all of that got torn up in the process of the rehabilitation. You can't be trying to act like you got it together when everybody see you homeless and ain't got shit.
Hmm.
you can't pretend no
Yeah.
more, because everything that happened to me was done very publicly. Now I'm in and out of jail, got 3 felonies. None of it's a secret anymore. All of this is all public record, so I couldn't hide if I wanted to.
But is there ever any, not temptation like to hide necessarily, but just to not mention it? Like you could just not mention it.
No, I don't feel like that God spared my life, because I almost got killed a few times out there fucking around with the game and on the streets. I don't feel like I was spared to hush up about it.
Hmm.
Because had it been anybody else, and they would have died on those streets, but God just wasn't ready for me to die. I was making a lot of foolish decisions every day. But as you can see, I'm very much still alive. And so that purpose of that is not to just have a quiet, successful life. It is to open my fucking mouth and to speak about what has happened so that other people may benefit from it. I've never been more comfortable talking about my flaws. It's the freest I've ever been,
Hmm.
embracing it, and I wouldn't go back for the world. I wouldn't go back.
Oh, it's really interesting to hear. So, without going over it in great depth and well, I mean, you've just said you're happy talking about it, so I don't know why I'm being so apologetic. But you said earlier that you had to be really broken down
Yeah.
in order to move forward. So, what exactly does broken down look like?
Bro- Broken down, oh my God, for me went from, so I no longer had my 200 or 300 pairs of underwear because they were all taken, during the drug raid and everything
Why did
like
you have
that,
200 to 300 pairs of underwear anyway?
because I have an underwear fetish.
So you just do one load of washing a year?
Theoretically, if I wanted to. But
Wow.
that is how much of a diva that I was before I lost everything. I would change. I had a daytime outfit and an evening outfit every day, because I didn't want to be seen in the same outfit that I had on during the day after the sun went down. And I
Oh my
had that much
God.
clothes, and that was a huge pride for me. But after the drug raid, everyone from the streets came in and took my shit. And so as I'm homeless, I'm going into different places watching this guy wearing my shoes. This person here has a drawer full of
Oh
my underwear.
wow.
This person here is wearing my damn jeans. That right, that is broken down. So I no longer am making 30 to 70 an hour. I don't have anything. I don't own anything. I don't have an apartment. I don't have my Mustang anymore. All I own is the clothes on my back. That is it. So there's no going to clubs. There is no more outfit changes. There's no contributing to anyone. There's no volunteering. There's no nothing.
So you were a drug dealer, and then you got arrested, and that's when the raid happened. How long had you been dealing before then?
I can't remember. Like maybe like, and my memory is really good from that time now, but okay, it took a long time for my memory to begin to come back. I think that time was so traumatic that my mind spaced it out.
Hmm.
And so just say maybe like a year or two
Okay.
or something like that. But I was just, dealing with friends locally. I wasn't doing, I was starting to get heavier into it, not because I needed the money, just because it was entertaining. It provided community, whereas I had got kicked out of the church before. This became my new family, the street world, the
Yeah.
underworld. So probably like a year or two, and then the arrest happened, and then like 4 days later, then I found out about the HIV, and then 4 days later, then I was in jail the first time because I started to get sloppy because my mind was overthrown,
Hmm.
and I didn't care to live anymore. I lost my will to live, and then I just became super careless. But up until then, I had not got arrested.
So the raid happened within the week of you finding out.
No, that was the first arrest. The raid happened about 4 or 5 months later.
Okay. Okay. So was the raid the moment when you stopped dealing?
Oh heavens, no! That doesn't stop anything. But well, I could say that I stopped trying. Well, stop having the ability to do it. Yeah, because apart from that, then it just turned into me just trying to get high every day because I didn't have any sort of infrastructure or base of operations anymore.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I never got back to it. I tried a couple of times, but it never worked. And I was kind of glad that they came. No, I was really relieved that they did come and get me because I needed an intervention.
And were you on the street immediately after this raid, or how does that
Right, because
factor in?
the raid came. You talk about a raid, honey. Like 45, I don't know how many armed men with semi-automatic rifles and face shields and Kevlar and the dogs and helicopters and everything. But
Shit.
I was in jail like 5 days, and then when I got out, it's not like you can. I tried to go back to the apartment just to see what I could scavenge, but it was just so heartbreaking to be in there. I just started crying, and then I just walked out, and then in that instant, I went to the street.
Oh, okay.
So
And how long were you living on the street?
like 6 months, and then then we were able to transfer my probation to back home to Baton Rouge.
Hmm. And so I'm really interested in hearing about at what point. Oh, I'm going to say you found Jesus, but that might sound really corny. But like at what point in this you gravitated towards religion?
The thing there is about when did I gravitate back,
Hmm.
because I had a strong relationship with Christ the whole time until I got kicked out of Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas for not being straight, which created a void, which allowed me to become open to guys bringing me drugs. As all drugs I tried for the first time was because a dude that I liked was like, "Hey, do you want this?" I didn't go and look for the shit myself.
Hmm.
I accepted it because I like these guys. So from the time that I got kicked out of church to the time that I walked back into one for the first time was probably about like 6 years. And I was in rehab about a year and a half after the raid in Shreveport, Louisiana, when I walked back into that church for the first time, but it was never the same. I was carrying a lot of trauma from being kicked out of church that I didn't know how to deal with, and I had not dealt with it. And I didn't understand at that time how dehumanizing it is for somebody to tell you that you cannot be around children because they think you're going to molest them.
Hmm.
And then try
Hmm.
to give you conversion therapy and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Basically, they were like, "We don't accept you as you are. We would like you to change, and then you can stay." And so, which I, which I
Because that
did,
always goes well. Yeah.
right. So it wasn't the drugs and the street life that pulled me away from God. It was being kicked out of church.
Like, so from my own experiences, I've never been in a religious family, didn't grow up around religion, but always knew that I wasn't accepted in religion. So I just was like, well, I'm just not interested then. Fuck you. I'm like, if you don't want me, I don't want you. Like, yeah, get lost.
Fair.
Um, what was your reaction then when it was like, we don't accept you because of who you are? Were you like, please accept me? Or were you then just like, well, I'm going to go and figure out things on my own? See ya.
It was, I'm gonna go and figure out things on my own, and I'm gonna go into the bars and into the nightlife where I know I won't be judged, and they will become my family. And it was a foolish thing for me to have done, but I wasn't as strong in my faith as I was. Like, if that sort of thing was to happen today, I would not feel the need to go and find a community elsewhere, because I now have learned how to separate humans from God. And at that point, I didn't do it. I wasn't able to do it. And that's an important thing for all of us to be able to do. And it's one of the main messages that I preach, is for us to not put pastors and preachers and worship leaders on these pedestals that they don't deserve to be on. And when they come with the bullshit, and they will, to not let it shake our faith. That should not have shaken my faith, because now what did I believe in? I believed in those people more than I believed in my own creator. Because it wasn't God that did that, it was those humans who did that. And I let that cause a separation in between me and God for all those years, and I should never have done that. But, we grow and we learn. So
Yeah, and so how did you then learn? How, like, what was the moment when you realized that your faith wasn't about those people, it was about God?
when I reapproached it all those years later, because I did so very gingerly, like, I went to church. I wasn't trying to volunteer anymore, nothing like that. Like, I tried even more different religions than I had previously, and just kind of really, just thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and prayed about it, little by little. And then that's how it came to me. I'm like, okay, once I sobered up enough to really think clearly for long enough, I was like, you know what? This doesn't make sense. Fuck Lakewood Church, and fuck, everybody who condones that sort of treatment that they gave me, but I don't have to say fuck God, you know. I began to understand why I believe what I believe, and be able to identify different categories of things as opposed to meshing it all together. And so, which is a huge thing that we all have to accomplish in life, is to actually be able to isolate why the fuck we're doing what we're doing and why. So a lot of times we're doing shit on autopilot and we don't know why the fuck we're doing it. And so,
Yeah, yeah. Or we're doing it for the shame of not doing it, or the way that we think that people are perceiving us. And so, speaking of people being assholes, do you experience any discrimination from within the queer scene when you talk about your religion?
no, I received discrimination from within the queer scene for not being white, because they were like racist homosexuals. And stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, racist homosexuals can also be like a whole bunch of other things, like ableist, sexist, and what's anti-religion?
I no,
What's the word?
there's like gay affirming churches and everything like that. And a lot of queer people really, really are trying to get their spirit right and soul right. I have not experienced that. Nobody's ever been like, you believe in this, be gone. Or everybody is super, that I've come across, is super respectful of somebody's beliefs. The thing that I have had an issue with has been, and this is a thing that's big in Louisiana, it's racism. Be it straight people, gay people, or whatever. Racism is huge. This is a Republican state. It's a red state. It's just the way it is in Texas, Mississippi, Alabama. I will be moving back to California, where people make sense. But for now, here with my
Well,
parents,
not everyone. Not everyone.
at least 90%, they make
Yeah,
sense to
okay.
me. I love Los Angeles. We just got back from LA the other night, so y'all.
So, at what point then did you start telling people about your HIV diagnosis?
When I began to resurface around 2013-ish, and then I got back on social media, and one of the first things I did was to do a super long post explaining what had happened. Because from the beginning, I was like, all right, if I'm gonna have a second chance at life, let's be transparent this time around. I did this whole long post about what happened, HIV and everything like that, and that's when it began. That is when it began.
So, take me back then to the moment when you hit post on that message. What were you thinking?
That's probably, I mean, I was nervous, I was trembling, but I also felt like I owed it to people, because a lot of people had wondered what the fuck happened, where I went. I was super social. I was everywhere, all over fucking Houston, at this party, this event, this opening, this gala, this function, everything, to like nothing overnight, and I and had explained nothing to no one. I think most people just thought I was just bad off on drugs and another statistic, and but they didn't know about any of the health things going on behind the scenes at all. So I felt like I owed an explanation to people. And then, how the hell you gonna disappear for years and then show back up like, oh hey girl, how you been? No, bitch,
Mm,
you gotta come with something more than that. And so
mm.
it was very, very scary to hit post. I didn't know how it would be received or judged or whatever, but all I got was love, and affection and open mindedness and open arms from people. And it really, HIV hasn't been a whole terrible thing like I had made it up in my head to be. All I've ever gotten from people has been love and acceptance across the board, 100%.
Ah, oh, that's really nice to hear. What was the conversation like with your parents?
Oh, well, my parents don't do conversations, because they're Southern and they don't like to talk about certain things to this very day. And that's just the way they are. We never talked about it. Um, when I was there homeless and they came and got me a hotel room, my mom was just like, "Are you on drugs?" I was like, "No." And of course, I was like 100 pounds. It was sucked in, skinnier than Whitney Houston was. And I was like, "No, I'm not on any drugs or whatever." So, like, totally lying. And that's about as far as the conversation went. And they never said anything. My parents are more like, let me see what we can do to help, but they don't want to be transparent and talk. That's just not what they do. They have their own issues that they haven't fixed that I can tell. Their shit's not resolved because when you resolve your issues, man, and you can talk about it easily, when you want to. That doesn't mean you have to write a whole book and everything like me, but you won't be uncomfortable. They are not comfortable talking about things that they went through to this day, and they're over 70 years old. And some
Hmm.
people are never going to get to that point. It's not for me to try to force that on them.
Hmm.
So we never talked about it. They let me go through my process and everything. They did what they could to help, but there was never a let's come to the table and have a chat. It doesn't go that way. Not in my family.
But you have told them.
Yeah, at some point they figured out that I had HIV. I think I told them then at that hotel room at that day, and other than that, that was it. It's never been spoken of.
Mm. Is that something that you like accept because that is just the way your parents are, or is it something that you battle with?
No, I mean I accept that it is what it is. They have their own perspective, their own history, their own reasons, their own trauma, their own past. I can't force that. And there's nothing
Mm.
for us to talk about at this point. I did what I did. It's done. And you know, now we get to heal and rejoice in the fact that I'm still alive and God brought me out no matter what. And so that's what we focus on.
Yeah,
Now, if it were
yeah.
up to me, then we would have had a whole. If it were up to me, then they would have actually taught me about sex and drugs growing up, and I would not have had to learn it from the street, which is another huge thing. And then, and when problems happen, then we would have always had a sit down, moment. Always, because I'm very communicative. But it's not up to me. I'm not the leader of the family. I'm not. I'm the youngest child. I'm not even the elder sibling. So me being the youngest child, I have like zero fucking clout and ability to say and do anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about my own experiences as well, in that my parents don't want to talk about things. And I wouldn't say I was like regretful about that or upset about that, because it's just something that I have learned to do, like just learned to get on with. That's just the way they are, like with your own parents. But it is interesting to see other people who have these really good relationships with their parents and just be like, how does that work?
Yeah, they're like, oh my God, I talk to my mom about everything all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. That's so strange. It's so weird.
I choose to focus on, what does work for my parents. They're great parents. They love to provide stuff. It's just that they themselves are not accessible and
Yeah,
available.
yeah. Yeah, and I should say the same thing about my parents. Like, they are great parents. They just don't want to talk to me about anything.
Right?
That came out wrong, but you know what I mean.
They don't want to talk to you about them.
They just don't want to know. No, they don't want to know about like most things. Yeah, anyway. Yeah. This is about you. This isn't about me. Sorry. I'm just offloading now. And so you said that you kind of just completely dropped out of the scene and you were worried about like stigma and what everyone would think about you. When did you start going back out again?
Once I moved back to Baton Rouge and I was on probation and I shouldn't have been going out because you're not supposed to be at the club when you're on probation. But
Did you have an ankle brace? No, and what is it
an
called?
ankle bracelet? No, I wasn't on house arrest. I was on probation because I had never been in trouble before. I
Sorry,
went from
I'm
like
like glamorizing this. Like, oh, did you have an ankle bracelet? That's not the right thing I should be asking. Sorry. So you weren't on house arrest.
no, but honey, probation is it's not really being free. You know, you can't leave the state without permission from your probation officer. You got to report there every month. You got to pay fees. You're not really
You've
free.
got to pay fees.
Yes, you're not. You're
What
not. You're not fee free.
what do you have to pay fees for?
I'm pretty sure I had probation fees. If I didn't have probation fees, then I had to pay the court costs, and it was a few $1,000s per charge. I think I had to pay for like the SWAT team knocking the door down. I think they rolled that in there, and other than that,
For
there
the
was just like
privilege of
fees
that
and shit.
happening, yeah.
And, and so yeah, like they're gonna get their money out of you. And so I mean, theoretically speaking, financially, it's smarter to have people on probation because then they're not in jail consuming
Yeah.
taxpayer dollars. You know, they're out paying the system money and then also having to pay for themselves.
Yeah.
But you don't really feel free. There's no ankle bracelet, but you're very much reminded that your ass is still a ward of the state and you can't come and go as you please.
But still, in amongst this, you managed to go out clubbing.
Oh yeah, fuck all that. I went to the club anyway. Now I didn't like broadcast the shit too much, but I had to start to try to feel like a human again. And so that meant and of course now I had to get dropped off by my parents at the club or picked up by a friend if I could reconnect. Once I found people to drive me to the club and everything, I just very gingerly reapproach life. Like, let me just stick one toe out and see how this goes. Let me go to a club and remember what it's like to be among people and not feel dirty and filthy. And so I just tried it once, and then I didn't die. Nothing blew up, but it was a process. I had to be sure that I could emotionally handle being around a club full of people again.
And could you?
For that, because this is a small dive bar, so yes, that it worked, and I began to feel alive again. I didn't, run away or nothing like that this time. I didn't go every night. Not at first. Eventually, I did start to go out like every night, but it took a while. It took a while. It took some time.
And what was it like trusting people again?
Well, this time I'm smarter about it. I don't trust just every fool that I come across on the street, and I pay attention to people's reputations to an extent, as opposed to just discarding the things that I would hear about people, because people warned me about the people I was hanging around before, which led to my arrest, yeah, and stuff like that. So now, I kind of pay attention to people's reputations and I read the tea leaves, with people and stuff like that, because I want to be accepting and trusting of everyone, and I want everyone to be my friend, and and we could just like have all kinds of orgies and then pray together and whatever we want to do, but it's just not like that because people are going to be envious and jealous. I've accepted the reality of the rudiments of this world as opposed to the flowery, glossy, rosy-colored glasses that I was looking at it through when I was naive and country and gullible. And so I don't mind trusting people. I think it's a privilege to do so, but it took a long ass time for me to go into the club was one thing, trusting people and finding people who I felt like I could. Years, 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 years.
And it's this weird catch-22 situation, isn't it? Like, if you don't open up to someone, then they won't open up to you. And so there's this kind of weird dance where you're just not letting each other in.
It is, but there was no impetus for me to let someone in or for them to let me in, and there was no rush. Like, we ain't going nowhere. We could just let this thing take its time. And I'm talking about just like friends. I wasn't interested in too much sex or trying to have boyfriends because I was still trying to feel comfortable within myself, just with the basics. But I would say maybe 5 or 6 years after moving back to Louisiana, I started to immerse myself in the art scene, and I met, like good friends in the art crowd and stuff like that. Who are usually all very open minded, just really relaxed people who facilitate safe spaces, and that's what they do. And so that really helped to bring me the rest of the way out of the shell that I was in with art. And my dreams returned to me during this time as well.
And so F Bar closed in 2017, but you were long gone from Texas at that point. Did you hear about it closing down?
Bars close and open in Houston all the time. That wouldn't have
Okay.
been noteworthy.
So it wasn't something that you clutched your pearls when you found out.
Well, I did clutch my pearls because it's such a fabulous establishment, but I didn't find that out until we went back earlier this year in March to film the documentary for my memoir, and we went by F Bar, and it was no longer F Bar. It was called something else at that time. Then I was like, oh my gosh, oh my goodness. So I had a moment with that was one of my two favorite bars in the whole state of Texas, if not the favorite, because you could really like dance. The bass was so loud, and you could really have a fucking, oh my god, it was just so amazing and classy, which is a hard mix to be able to have great like hip hop and R&B music and a dash of techno, house, and still you could put on like a fucking vest and a tie and fit in. It was so nice, and the drag shows and everything and the chandeliers I'll never forget.
I don't know. Why would you have a chandelier? You need to dust it. It's just so much work.
Because it sparkles, and when you walk through
Oh,
the
I don't
door,
know.
it looks like just angels dancing in the sky. They have workers that dust all of that shit at bars. So
Well, I've been to many bars where they haven't had anyone clean the chandelier for a number of years. Maybe we go to different places. You sound like you go to much more upmarket places than me. This question is really cheesy, so apologies in advance. If you could go back in time and have a conversation with yourself at the first time that you ever went to the F bar, what advice would you give?
I would tell myself, I would tell myself to stop and reconnect with God then, and not to wait for catastrophe.
Do you think it was catastrophe?
It was all very catastrophic what happened. That life ended. Like that whole life ended. I didn't physically die, but everything ended. I mean, I was close to death, but I was, everything's ended. I mean, that's all. When it gets that bad, it's over. It just all needs to burn up in flames, and you have to start brand new from scratch all over. It was catastrophe, but I welcome the disruption because that gave birth. It's like when you burn down a forest or you uproot a garden bed. You just go in there and destroy everything because there's nothing else that's going to come of it. But now you get fresh new growth from it. It is devastating, say, to a garden bed to go and rip it all up by the roots, turn the soil over because it was settled like it was. But now you have to destroy it if you want to have a new crop and a new harvest. And so, yeah, it was catastrophic. I wouldn't change a thing because I love who I am today, and I accept every aspect of me, however it is it may be judged. I don't care. I love everything about me, and that's something that is a statement you would have never heard me say back in those days. No matter how vain I was, no matter how many clothes I had, no matter how much money I made, you would have never heard me say that I love myself through and through. I never said it.
And how many pairs of underpants do you have now?
I have rebuilt my collection. And not only have I rebuilt my collection, but I take better care of things now after I lost everything.
How many pairs do you have?
We're back up into the 300, maybe going on 400 range, and I keep them all on skirt hangers. All my underwear are individually hung.
Why?
Because I can fit more that way. Because each skirt hanger can fit 6 pair, and then I have like many of them in my closet and everything like that. And so that way I can go through the racks and see what color and material I'm feeling like I want.
Do you have any memories of F-bar or clubbing from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, please get in touch. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories. Go to lostspacesPodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space and tell me all about what you got up to. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Lost Spaces Pod. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I have been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the next year. You can hear the first single, Well Groomed Boys, which is also playing underneath my talking right now on all streaming platforms. If you liked this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast platform, or just told people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen to. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.